Okay, I'm back. Yeah, technical issues, people. I'll wait for you guys to come back around and realize that I'm here. Let me see. Let me text somebody. Okay, cool. You guys are watching. Is Elizabeth again? Yeah, technical shit. If that happens again, you guys, I'm going to put you up on my iPad, and so that means that I'll have to take a little time to do that. We're back. You're back on my phone. My phone took a shit. Okay? My phone took a shit, everybody. Alright. Let's just keep on moving on. Not today, Satan! Out, damn spot! If my phone takes a shit again, I will take a few minutes to put this iPad on the area that the phone is on now, and then hit the thing, and then go from there until it's done, you guys. And I'll have to just splice this video together and then put it all back up again. All right, we're back. Okay, so the New Age stuff. Okay, it's the other thing that happened this past week. I've been watching some people on YouTube and other places talk about things like this, love and light, right? And I really just can't trust people who do not talk about hate. Now, love and hate, as far as polarity is concerned, in the law of polarity, guess what? It's all the same. Look what it says. Everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. You know, it's like, this seems real lofty and unreachable. Like, how do you understand these things? You know, and there's just no other way to understand them other than, let's see, the questions have to change in our lives. The way that we approach this phenomena has to sort of reframe itself. You also have to have lived enough life. Doesn't mean you've lived a long life, even though at 46 years old I can see how living, like at 46 years old I have enough hindsight to look at reconciliations. You know, I have enough to like reconcile and look at. I can see enough pattern at this point, at least, you know what I mean? At 80 years old, I'll be able to see even more, a longer sort of view to see the patterns and the algorithms in my own life. So age matters in that way, but it also matters the quality of the way that you've observed your own events in your life, right? And so when you're able to observe your life in that kind of quality, you'll see paradoxes. Eventually, you'll see where you contradict yourself. You'll see where you yourself are a hypocrite. I have seen where I am a hypocrite. I see where I contradict myself constantly. And I see where I lied to myself a long time ago, and then now I'm telling myself the truth. And all of a sudden, it's all reconciled. Now I understand why I said what I said. I thought what I thought then, because I was on a different point of view on that same spectrum. It's all the same spectrum. It's all the same line, just different spectrums. Let me see what you guys are saying. And selflessness fit. Oh, yes. Right. Love and hate are the same fucking thing. Right. That's why I don't hate my enemies. Right. Your life will stretch out in front of you like an accordion. That's exactly right, Alexa. That's it. I mean, you have to be able to something. I can talk about this all the time. Something has to happen in your life where you're like, all right, what the fuck? And then you're like, okay, wait a minute. And then all of a sudden you look to see what's on the conveyor belt of your life. What did you put there? It's like HEB, your life was supermarket, right? What did you put there? And how much is all of it? And you have to be able to sit in reconciliation of I have to be able to sit in reconciliation of my actions, of my actions that came out of my assumptions that are rooted in what belief system or knowledge system or what. It's all connected, right? So when we talk about love and hate, resentment and gratitude, and all these things, it's the same. So I can't really trust people who do not know how or refuse to observe this universal truth, and who are out there speaking about love and peace and harmony and acceptance, but refuse to admit that their shit stinks, right? This is a way to observe this in the world. So I see this a lot in the New Age movement, and this is very connected to last week's whole like vibration talk, right? So as you can see, a lot of these things interconnect with each other. In polarity this time is you cannot refuse. Here's another one, and this is a very controversial one, okay? And we're going to talk about this with the very last principle, which is the principle of gender. But I am going to bring it up here for a second. You know, in this talk about that there's no such thing as male or female, that is such an incredible amount of bullshit. There is female and there is male. And then there's the stuff in between, which is totally fine. But you cannot refuse the polarity of like the negative positive. You cannot refuse the polarity of female and male. You cannot refuse the polarity of the sun and the moon, right? You cannot refuse the polarities. These things exist in the laws of nature. They are real, okay? They're undeniably real. So those things, I cannot believe somebody that cannot talk about hate with the same passion and the same desire to understand it and the same way they talk about love. I don't believe they know how to love. I don't think they know what that really means. If they refuse to express those things within themselves, that we are all of that, and we have all of that, and how to confess your hate. I'm always interested in learning what people hate. What annoys you? What pisses you off? What makes you want to stab someone in the neck and then watch like the blood squirt out from like the side of their neck, and then you feel like a catharsis imagining that because it was so awesome? Like, what does that to you and for you? Can you admit it? Can you know what that answer is on the top of your head? Do you know what you hate? Do you know why you hate it? I would put that to you all today to really think about. It's almost like I don't have to give you permission to do it, but some people need permission to do it because it feels wrong. But I implore you guys to think about what it is you hate today. If you say you love and you're an empath, and you're observing this phenomenon in the world, what is it that you hate? Have you thought about it before? Do you want to think about it? If you don't, why not? Everything is attempting to become whole again. We cannot become whole again unless we admit to these things, right? This is in the law of polarity. Another way this is expressed is, you guys have heard me talk about Eve, right? Enabling Eve. You ever heard me talk about enabling Eve? So, to me, enabling Eve, even though Eve is female in the Garden of Eden, right? She is woman, but she's also an aspect inside all of us. Every single one of us has an aspect of enabling Eve. It's just about learning how to identify where that is inside of us. What is it we continue to enable within ourselves and outside of ourselves as a result? That enables the mediocrity of mankind. And eventually it's like a butterfly effect. Everybody's enabling all of this lip dick boring mediocrity. And how do I contribute to the enabling and continuing of this mediocrity? How do I personally do that? So let me look here, and then I'm going to move on and tell you more about that. That's it. Okay, so Michael says, I said it just as the feed stopped, but you must be able to hate enough to love. There you go. Great minds. I've had many what the fuck moments where I'm looking at myself like how I'd get here. Yeah. And those are great. When we have a lot of those moments, it's like you're paying attention. Like my grandpa always told me, pay attention. Let's see. Then I can look back and be like, oh, I made conscious and subconscious choices that led me to this difficult knowledge. Right. And that's the thing, right? You know the parts of you that were aware of what you were doing, and you know the parts of you. And then now, because you took the time to look at it, now you might see the parts you didn't know. You were not aware of it. Now you know. So now there's another level of knowledge, of self-knowledge. Now you can grab that, and that's part of your arsenal now. So because you had to go get it. You had to go get it. And then Alexa says, yes. And then Michael says, you mentioned one of the things I hate, the denial of male and female. Right. That's a whole nother conversation, and we're going to talk about that. I fucking hate when people deny shit that is obviously real. Right. Maybe that's related to my love of that which isn't obviously real. I hate people who hurt animals and pedos and would fly a flag of their flesh in the streets, name covered in blood, dragging their severed balls behind me. Alexa. Oh, thank you. That's why I love you, Alexa. I miss you, girl. Alexa, I'll talk about that another time, because I don't want to tell everybody who everybody is, and then they feel like they don't want me to tell people. But Alexa's a homie of mine for a long, long time, from the Foxhole girl. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, I have enabled mediocrity. Oh my God. Yeah, we all have. I highly recommend The Act of Will by Robert Sadio. You know what, Michael? I'm going to go back and gather those titles that you mentioned, and I'm going to start to just build a book list for Church on the B-Sides, and I'll put it up in the notes on the page so people can go access that book list when they're ready to or want to. I love you too, girl. I see you. So yeah, so this is the whole point is, okay, so enabling Eve. Let me go back to enabling Eve. Basically, enabling Eve, and again, many of you guys have heard me talk about that for a long time. I mentioned here it's the part of us that enables mediocrity. You know, in a real obvious way, enabling Eve, and this is how I came to see her, and then I started breaking her down in relativity, right? This is how my process has been working. Enabling Eve, in its most obvious sense, is a woman who continues to enable a male in their lives who is very mediocre, and instead of encouraging him to be greater than he ever thought he could be, she, for whatever reasons, fear of her life, fear for her survival and things like that. This is partly how women were actually contained for so long in marriage, a long time ago, especially when they had children and they were in the home, and so then they're being forced to sort of not tell their boss that they're a bunch of lint dicks, you know what I mean? Because then they're gonna get fired, you know. So it's like that in the home, then it's like that in our jobs, you know. And a lot of us enable this in some ways, in most ways, I think, because we are afraid of our survival. So let's be real fair. I'm attempting to be fair, and because I want to admit and say that there are a lot of reasons why women do these things. But this isn't just about women. I just mentioned that because that's the purest expression of, in my mind, how I came to see it myself. But then there's a spectrum. There's an enabling Eve inside of men. There's an enabling Eve inside of, and this is heterosexual relationships too that I was talking about regarding enabling Eve. There's an enabling Eve in lesbian relationships. There's an enabling Eve in gay relationships. It's a moving archetype. It's the part of us that I feel is our feminine, wounded feminine self, right? That space continues to enable mediocrity in general. How does that look in your life? I don't know. But if you're curious, ask yourself, start to wonder, where do I enable people? Anyone. And am I afraid of them? And why do I enable them? What am I doing? And how long have I been doing it, right? And so to me, when I think of enabling Eve, and I want to, again, give you examples of how you can consider looking at these things in polarity in the world. Because we want to take these lofty ideas and I want to present to you a way to consider, to use them, how to see in the world, and how to see in your life, how to apply them in your life. So this idea of, enabling even the world being almost like the left wing. And then, so it's like the borderline left wing. I feel like, and then the right wing is this narcissistic masculine principle. The left is this borderline feminine principle. And so I feel like in that way, do you guys see what I'm talking about? It's actually really cause and effect. Let's see if I can get into cause and effect, which is coming up. But to me, that's part of the aspect in all of us that continue to enable the emperor with no clothes, right? So we can observe it in our politics, we can observe it in our workplace, we can observe it in our own family, and then apparently in ourselves. And that's the most important part. I mean, I've done a lot of enabling in my life. Okay, yes, Michael, I would love some help in getting that list together. Oh yeah, strong woman, vulnerable woman, polarity. Well, in a lot of ways, enabling Eve would be like the vulnerable woman. And then, I don't know how many people here, I guess if you're here, you might know about Lilith, the liberator is what I call her. She's the other archetype. She was Adam's first wife. And so in that way, Lilith, the liberator, and enabling Eve are polarities too. Do you see how these things shift? It's not just black and white, north and south, east and west. Those things are important to know. The extremes, it's important to know. But there's spaces of relativity all on the spectrum, right? So even though Eve and Lilith are women or the feminine principle, it's the same. They vary in degrees, and this is what polarity is. It's the same, but they vary in degrees. At what point, at what degree does she start turning into Eve? And at what point and what degree does she start turning into Lilith? Right? And there are so many things we can explore. Like that conversation can just be a whole course in and of itself. You know, it can be really controversial to talk about, which is good because, I like controversy. But again, that's a whole other conversation. That's a whole other, and I want to do that. In fact, this is what I talk about all the time. I'm going to show you this thing that Todd created because of a book idea that I have, which I'm going to share here. Can you see it? It's backwards though. Decolonizing Eve, the Lilith factor. And we just got this art from the internet, and we're not doing anything with the art. We just have it there to stare at, so I'm not trying. So see, this is like the two dichotomies. And it's the Madonna whore, Eve and Lilith, right? It's about the child and the crone. There's all these different dichotomies. And what is the difference? It's just of varying degrees, all of the same thing. Again, it takes, and how do you reconcile those things too? Because this is part of what I've had to learn to do, and it's not easy. Social media really does this, doesn't it? It really, really, and I want to talk about Lilith and Eve more, Terry, and that right there, to be honest with you, is the core of my whole life's work. And so I'm developing webinars and workshops and this book, and all of that really breaks down ways that we can identify how women have enabled mankind, and basically in general, how we continue to enable and take responsibility, because every victim at some point he needs to take responsibility, right? And what I mean by that is, how do we start and when do we start to transmute this pain and this suffering and this victimhood? What do we do with it now? How do we rise out of hell like the phoenix on fire, like a bat on fire, like a fucking bat out of hell, right? So, you have to understand these polarities. People have to accept them. And this is what this New Age movement and this Christianity movement and the reason I bring that up is because to me that's really important. These movements are the most important to understand, because they're like the new philosophy, but they're not asking any questions. They're telling you what the dogma is, and they're wearing masks of enlightenment, when it really is the same old shit, a different suit. And it's important, and it's what does it have to do with polarity? Because the thing about polarity is wholeness. And all of these thoughts and these philosophies, the secret, and you hear people talk about them, they're talking about these principles in the secret, for instance, right? As if, it was business transactions. Again, it's like we have to be able to identify all of these 7 principles in a way in their purity, so that we then understand them in each of their own sovereign purity, but then we can see then how they are alchemized as a result into each other. And once we can understand that and observe that phenomenon and learn how to do that, or understand that that's possible, you can do the same thing in your own life, and the transmuting begins to happen. Let's see right here. Here's Michael. Once again, to follow along with the topics of the priest is talking about, take a look at the Kabbalion. Yes, the Kabbalion. This is what's the what is it? Closed the ears of understanding. See, I'm telling you, I'm kind of out of it today. The lips of wisdom were closed to the ears, or open or closed except to the ears of understanding. That's it, right? Basically, this is for people who can, with eyes that can see and ears that can hear. You cannot say these things to people who can't grasp these concepts, because for some reason they just don't have the wisdom yet to understand what you're talking about. It remains too intellectualized and not experienced and felt. Oh, thank you, Terry. I can't wait to tell you more about it. It's so primordial and so deep and icky. I know you know. Taking responsibility and taking back their power, right? And realizing that we gave away our power. Everything is about power. Everything. I talk about this constantly. And why did we give away our power? Did we even know we gave away our power? There's so much to unpack there, you guys. So much to unpack there in our individual lives and in our societies. And we're born as an ISBN number, immediately being told what's right and wrong, right? So, right? And so then we don't question that. After a while, this stuff gets so buried that we just take it for that's the way things are. and that's the way it'll always be. And we don't think to question stuff, such deeply rooted assumptions. We just don't think to do that. And so things like the New Age movement, even though everybody's making fun of Christians now, like that's not cool anymore. What's cool is to be woke. These woke people are on Ambien. Okay? It's just a new kind of sleep. That's all it is. Because they're not talking about wholeness, right? And I also notice that people on the internet who talk about the goddess and the dark goddess and the integration and the shadow work, they still have a hard time talking about hate. They still have a hard time. They're still dancing around it. It's just people cannot drop into their like savage, on the ground, natural self. They have a hard time doing that. They still have to be in some sort of civilized space because if we're not somehow in some civilized space, we might just go and kill everybody all of a sudden. I just feel like everything's so clinical and so clean. Everybody's so afraid to be unclean all of a sudden. They're just afraid of that. So this same old insincerity transfers over and transfers over and transfers over. Because we do not understand how to look for the law of polarity in all things. If somebody is saying that they love, do they hate? I've asked people that question, who have based everything that they've done their whole lives on how much they love, but then all of a sudden you ask about their hate and they don't know how to answer it. They get flustered and they can't believe you even asked them that. I know right away that they're lying. They're selling me something. They're selling me some bullshit. They're not telling me the truth. Let's see. Yes, take responsibility. Okay, I want to look through here real quick to see, make sure that that I'm not missing anything. Yeah, everything. Oh, yes. You cannot be authentic. You can't ascend because you're dismissing a very important part of the universal truth. You can't deny, these polarities. Everything in this universe has a positive, negative form and is held in place via the law of polarity. Every atom has within it the neutron and proton and electron that binds matter. All things are bound into physical form via the law of polarity. That is what's holding it all together. It's all the same. We talked about that. Let me see. Now think about this. How opposite is it when you talk about on the right wing, right? The fascist sort of thinking. But then the cancel culture that's rising on the left. I talk about this a lot because this is stuff that we all observe every day. We're all on social media, obviously. We're in the world paying attention to the news, mainstream news. And so I like to use these examples because everyone is aware of these examples. But what's the difference between the cancel culture on the left and any kind of fascism on the right? Is it still suppression? Just suppression of a different kind, right? But people on the left will think that they are morally superior than people on the right. People on the right will think they're morally superior than people on the left, but it's all kind of like the same. What just varying differences there, right? So whenever somebody in my life, this is how I transmute this stuff. Whenever I'm completely annoyed, completely just pissed off, and the way that I've been able to help myself through it without holding the hate and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it all the time, but I'm practicing it more and more. And that is when I see some bullshit that I don't agree with or that I see is completely just fucked, on the internet or whatever, on the news, I have to remind myself what I've talked about here before, and that is their experience in that body, whether it's a black body, a brown body, a white body, a red body, a yellow body, a male body, a female body, a rich person's experience versus a middle class versus a poor experience, an American, a Brazilian, and a Japanese person, I consider they're coming from a different space on the spectrum of experience. And I guess that is the result of that experience. So then what that does, it releases me from feeling the hate. It releases me from feeling the resentments, the deep dislike, the complete boredom. Whatever it is that doesn't feel good, it releases me from those things because I'm like, okay, they're coming from that place, from being in this body and that experience and this financial situation in that country, and this whole other framework, this whole other cultural reality. They're not wrong. They are expressing what that experience is ultimately culminated into. This is what I do to transmute and observe these laws, to help me release myself from the responsibility that I have to change it, because I'm not going to change it. There's nothing to change. This is what's so hard to reconcile, guys. There's always going to be Nazis, whether they're called Nazis. There's always going to be, the church, whatever that represents. There's always going to be, the devil, whatever that represents. There's always going to be the martyr, whatever that represents. These are all aspects of Creator. These are all aspects that need each other, just like Batman and the Joker, for each other to exist. These are polarities. They pull. They have to. This is the way it is. So there's always going to be light and darkness. And so when the monarchy falls, what does that mean about its polarity? See, this is the way that I want to implore you guys, or to if you guys to consider to observe society and reality, to look at it in a way that's almost philosophical and scientific. And in that way, you don't have to hold the burden in your heart. You don't have to hold the burden in your spirit. You can actually be in this world but not of it, right? To use a very popular Jesus saying. I like to use the stuff that Jesus said because, again, that's very mainstream. People have heard it no matter where they're from in the world. They know normally they've heard it. And so it helps to give a deeper understanding of what that means, where the good news in all of this is that you can observe, and this is what this law of polarity can help you do, is to understand that, that exists because that exists. It's all very scientific in a lot of ways, right? So then it allows you to exit, to observe, so that you can start to understand in a more compassionate way just what in the hell is going on around here, and in a way that you don't have to feel the heaviness and the burden of all that is happening in the world. That is so hard to reconcile. It's so hard to justify when we observe them via lenses that are like moral lenses, morality lenses. That's not right, that's not wrong. Well, it's not about right or wrong. Is it that this has to exist because this exists? And it really is that simple. It is so hard because we've been so programmed to feel bad and guilty and shame about world events. We can feel empathy and compassion. Absolutely right. But you do not have to martyr yourself for these events. It's beyond our micro control. All we can do in our micro control is practice the universal laws of nature in our own lives. Mind your mind with mentalism, right? And the polarity, to helps you remember that if that's disgusting, repulsive, pedophile exists, what is the opposite polarity of that? These are real mind twisters, right? But I'm telling you, learning how to apply these in your life can help you feel relief from the world, right? It really helps you dive into a deeper understanding, which means that you can give your burden can rest over here because the law is doing its thing. You can see, what is my place in it? What can I do? Well, first of all, you have to practice your self-knowledge and take responsibility for yourself. Doing that one thing is already helping everything else. And then anything else is extra, right? Anything else is extra. Let's see what you guys are saying here. Elizabeth said, well said. Yeah. Let's see, well said. The wise person walks the middle path. Yeah, fully conscious of what lies on either side. Completely correct. That's it. The reconciliation with a 90-degree angle. That part of it there, yes. The method of science, the aim of religion. Right. Oh, I see Q's watching. All right, let me look to make sure that I have, I want to, because I know I'm running over a little bit because I had that little fart that happened on the phone. Oh, let's see. Okay, learning to transmute these things. I said, we will run into our own contradictions. Every human being is a walking contradiction. We are all hypocrites. The ideal self in psychology is the other end of the polarity of what we wish to be. If you live long enough sincerely, you will run into your own contradictions, and then you'll start reconciling your own paradoxes. If you're not coming up against your own contradictions, then you're not growing. Right? And when these contradictions start to show up in your lives, I'm telling you, don't be scared of them. Say, wow, here is a moment of reconciliation. This means now it's like the Fibonacci sequence, where it's like, is it that mathematical, and tell me if I'm wrong or right, but so is it like 1 plus 2 is 3, then 3 plus 5, and then 5 plus, and so what happens is the circle keeps on widening, and a bigger leap next time, and a bigger leap next time, and a bigger leap next time, until all of a sudden, it's like a well-greased machine where you're just following, and now the law takes over because you planted the seed in a time and a space with integrity. You hit the mark at the beginning, and as a result, everything else is the law of nature taking over, right? And while that is happening, you can observe yourself using all these different the universal principles. Right? And polarity is one that's hard for people to grasp because they can't imagine that, Hitler and whoever is a saint over here or somehow can be the same person. I can't compute. Ah! It's hard because we have been trained through colonization, through these false moral systems of constantly knee-jerk responding, wanting to knee-jerk respond with, that's right, that's wrong. That's evil, that's good. That's right, that's wrong. It's hard not to. It takes a lot of like acute, like what's that, Mr. Miyagi? Daniel-san. That just like, with the fly. You know what I mean? It takes a lot of that. Like, don't let that thought pass. What was that thought? Oh, get back over here, motherfucker. Get back over here, you thought. Trying to escape me. I got you. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, the thoughts just passed in. I don't want to think of the thought. Think of the thought. Think of the thought. There's the thought. Ah! Okay, so change your questions. This is what I wrote. Once you see it, then you have to transmute it. The thing that's like, change your questions. Why? Have to understand that it is on the same current. What was the action that led them to that space on the same current? What was their experience? I was just talking about all that a minute ago. From what point of view did or have they experienced the phenomena of life? Those people that are weird, that are like freaking you out, that are pissing you off. Let that inform you of where they are on the spectrum of or current of polarity. How can we observe the law of polarity in our lives? Everything is in the trigger. All of a sudden, that bad thing that triggers you. Change the question. Examine your assumptions. And then you will be released from the responsibility of feeling the burden of hate. And suddenly you will understand that they have to exist for some reason. This has to exist for some reason. And now you get to observe it. Right? All right, let's see. Let me look through here one more time. The principle is important to Hermeticists because it suggests that we change the polarity of our degree of emotion by recognizing it as the same and choosing the degree, but which best suits our needs is mental alchemy. This is not about bypassing and say, well, I'm going to choose not to think that because it's uncomfortable. I'm just saying, okay, what do I want to transform this into? That's what that's saying. Bypassing means not acknowledging or denying. Transmuting does not mean denying it. It means accepting it, acknowledging it, and then having the audacity to get it and include it in the soup. Right? All right. And that's pretty much it. I'm sure that there are other things I wanted to talk about, but you know me, you guys, I can go on and on forever. Again, Toth was here. Toth. People call him all kinds of things, right? I mean, this is the scribe of the Emerald Tablet, and this is the dude. This is the 7 Hermetic Principles. This is it. We got Larry hanging out with him, and then we have Lilith. I brought her over. She's hanging out now for real, like for a long time, because we're gonna talk about her a lot next year. Okay, she's gonna be around big time. She's always around, but she's gonna really be front and center. And yeah, and that's about it. Are you gonna play the guitar on the way out?
No, the kitties. I don't want to disturb her.
Well, we were gonna play. Todd was gonna play the guitar on the way out, but Kitty is sleeping in the chair.
You want to show them?
I'm gonna show you.
You can turn this.
No, it's okay. I got it. Look, there's Lily Sheba. Your guitar's in the way. See her? Well, anyways, she's sitting on Todd's chair, and it is kind of, he can't play the guitar. So I'm just gonna hum the I don't know the words of that song. And then also remember, you guys, as I always say at the end of every episode, there's a flower that grows in the darkness, lily of the valley. So many reasons it shouldn't exist. It must be celebrated. You are one of those flowers, so you may as well bloom because it's going to be dark for a while. Fly your freak flag high, people. Be a pirate out in the deep dark sea. All right? Shine on. And join us next week again for another episode of Church on the B-Sides. We're going to be talking about the polarity of the law of rhythm. All right? Say bye, Larry. Larry's like, all right already. I cannot work under these conditions. Sorry about the hiccup with the phone. I will continue to work on this technology crap. All right, love you guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.